Hello, everybody. My name is Ian Kirkpatrick. I'm an author and robot, and today I'm going to give you the 5 quickest ways to piss me off while I'm reading your book. Now, before we get started, number one, if you enjoy what I do on this channel, please remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Number two, if you would like to have your work featured on this channel, check out the links down in the description below. Lamwai for the monthly prompt contest, and Pitch Fit for just pitching whatever creative work you have on the marketplace. So, trying to do my part with getting out independent authors and artists through those programs. Now, we all have our lines when we're reading or watching movies or playing video games, our lines in things that just destroy something for us. One of the tropes that I can absolutely not do in a storyline, or I guess you could say storyline, I can't do at all, is if the main character is a cheater. I just can't get on board with you. There is nothing more selfish than cheating, except I think there may be one more thing I can think of that's more selfish than cheating, but I'm not going to go there. But I have a couple of things that I can't get on board with for main characters. I can do murder. I can't do a selfish cheater, and I especially can't do a story that's like a selfish cheater who then their spouse goes crazy when they find out that the other one has been cheating, and I'm supposed to feel bad for the person that's about to get murdered by their insane spouse. Not a storyline that I can deal with. Anyway, that's not actually why we're here. So these are the 5 quickest ways to piss me off with the way that you've written a story, with things that I find in stories or in the writing community that I just can't deal with. Now, disclaimer before I get started, this video is probably going to be a mistake. I'm probably gonna step on some toes with my opinions, but I was up most of the night because my sleeping schedule is shot to heck. So let's rant a little bit about personal preferences that will lead me to hate a book pretty much every time I find them, and I would love to hear some of yours down in the comments below. Number one is throw away trauma. I talk about this in pretty much every book review that I do, where trauma is just thrown into the story. You could probably name a couple from books that I have read just this year. Whether or not I should mention them remains to be seen, but at least 2 of them have had rape thrown in them near the end of the book, and the rape has not been played out in the story. It has not been treated with the respect that it should have as a way that it traumatizes the character. And in one of them in particular, the character gets raped near the end. She already had enough bad stuff going on with her life in general. It's just kind of thrown in there. She didn't need it to go in there to complicate things. And then it's used in book 2 to put daggers between her daggers, to put a pause in the sexual relationship between her and her partner so that her partner can go and complain to a relationship therapist about how they're not having sex in the way that this person wants because the partner is still traumatized from sex. And that's brought up at the beginning of that book, and then through the entirety of the novel, the whole rape thing is forgotten until the very end, when suddenly a computer AI system comes through and says, oh, by the way, I deleted those memories, so you're not going to be traumatized anymore. So it's literally just forgotten about. It's used as a wedge issue for stopping specific sex for one partner to complain about the other partner, and then just deleted at the end with no personal growth, no dealing with it, no nothing. It's so disrespectful. It pisses me off. If you are going to use trauma in a story, be deliberate about it and follow through. Now, this is obviously going to be one of my pet peeves because one of the big focuses in a lot of what I do is not specifically trauma, but the fallout of trauma. If you look at the wall back here of this beautiful art, you can't even tell the bottom one is Body Moore's cover, but I got 2 characters here. One of them belongs to Sam, my creative partner and the comic artist who did Body Moore's book cover, and the other one is Jarek, and that guy is my character. And they're 2 characters in a story that very much has to do with trauma, but it's not so much as the trauma that happened to them as it is them dealing with, or rather not dealing with, the trauma that they went through earlier on, and then they meet and they slowly figure out how to cope with trauma, and they become they're not necessarily each other's teachers, but they become sort of an anchor for one another to help the other learn how to cope and actually confront the trauma and learn to go past their trauma. But so this is specifically going to be one of my peeves, is when you introduce trauma and you do not use it correctly. You just kind of use it as a plot device or some kind of attempt to make people feel bad for your character or a shortcut to empathy. Trauma isn't a shortcut to empathy. It is emotional manipulation if you, the author, choose to do it to your character because it's the only way that you can think to get people to like your character. And feeling bad for your character is not the same thing as liking your character. This is a subpoint of throwaway trauma, but just it's also kind of an abuse of descriptions or situations and or red herrings. When an author makes pointless decisions about the character that should be impactful. So let's look at both of Alexa Dunn's books that I've read. Were they both this year, really? Let's look at that really quick. Is with The Stars We Steal. The character is theoretically poor. However, her being poor doesn't actually affect her in any sort of way because her extended family are all rich and they're giving her money. She's never actually scarce for food. She's never actually scarce for anything. And she still acts like an upper classer because she's not actually poor. You're just supposed to feel bad for her, and it just comes off as another one of those things of, look, I'm not like other girls because the other girls are all rich and I'm not, so I'm down to earth. Being poor was pointless in that story. It didn't have any effect on the main character's thoughts or her actions or the way that she interacted with others or society. None of that. The same thing happened in the Ivies. Well, a similar thing happened in the Ivies, where the main character was theoretically poor, but she was going to a rich school. She hung out with the rich friends, and she was given everything that she needed for the story to go forward. You didn't actually see how being poor affected her because she was simply given everything that she needed, and then people took pity on her, and she had a bunch of rich friends, but the pity just went so far as being adopted by rich people. So you didn't actually see those choices affect the life of the character. And I hate that. If you're going to make a choice for a character, show that choice how it affects the character. Finally, getting on to number 2. I told you it was going to be a rant day. Getting on to number 2, low standards for certain types of fiction. So what I'm talking about specifically here is that low quality in certain genres of fiction is allowed because people go, well, at least I have that. You know, I've seen more than enough with specific demographics of main characters where people say, oh, it's okay if the quality of this book is really not that great because at least we have XYZ demographic main character. I don't accept the premise of the soft bigotry of expectations where it says, well, anything is better than nothing. Oh, it's okay if people don't spend time creating an original character and we just get the leftovers or the hand-me-downs of a beloved character that nobody cares about anymore because at least we're getting somebody of this demographic in that leftover character. How about no? How about I have too much respect for individuals that any demographic deserves an original story and an original character that are good. So, excusing poor quality because it's a niche, yeah, no. Number 3, the kind of people that are like, quantity is king, and then crap on every other kind of writer. Look, there are more than 2 types of commercial writers, but I'm going to focus on the 2 big ones. Number 1 big one is the quantity is key person. They're usually the 20-50 rule type of person, and if you don't know what 20-50 is, it's the idea that if you have 20 novels on the marketplace, at least 20 novels on the marketplace, and you sell at least one of each every day of the year, then you'll make a minimum of $50,000 a year. That's the 20-50 rule. And there are many authors, specifically genre authors, that will focus on getting a bunch of content out there so that they will have these stories to sell because their main focus is building an audience to build sales in those genres. And that is a legitimate sales model, marketing model, if that is what your goal is. Now, I don't appreciate the people that do the 20-50 and then crap on people that are writing maybe their ideal legacy stories, their fantasy epics, because they had this whole world in their head and they want to expand on that. These are the person that is writing for creativity and the art is very, very different than the person that is writing specifically to make a bunch of money on the market in a specific niche. Now you can combine the 2 of them together because there are many people that go, I'm going to make my epic in this genre and then go. But there's also a very big separation of the one that cares about the art or the stories that they've had in their head since they were 8, and the ones that just want to capitalize on specific genres and selling in those things and puts consumerism first. So just notice those, and if I see an author that is like crapping on the art of it because they want to make money, make it turn off pretty much all the time. Sorry. I respect your hustle, but I don't think that we need to be crapping on each other. Number 4 is if the author does not read and I can tell. Now, there are a bunch of different ways in which people can tell if an author does not read. You're not familiar with specific genres, you're not familiar with tropes, specifically the ones in the genre that you're writing. It can get so bad that people have no idea how to format paragraphs. I have seen people that just do block text, or they don't know to switch paragraphs when the subject switches. They don't know technically what you're allowed or not allowed to do. I think a lot of writer problems actually come, or writer questions rather, come from people that don't really read. Because if your question is, can I do this? The answer is usually yes. And there are usually tons of examples of what it is you're trying to do in various forms that you can go and see how other people handled it and then come up with your own way of dealing with it. So if I can tell that an author doesn't read, avoids reading, actually actively hates reading even, it will turn me off of their work. Now, I'm not saying that you have to read all of the time. I apparently go through cycles of obsessive reading and not really reading, where I won't read a whole bunch for maybe a month or two, but then I will just like speed read a handful of books over a month or 2 months, and I'll just kind of go on and off that cycle. I think usually that's between first draft and when I'm revising, and I do more reading when I'm revising because it takes less time to revise. Well, revising is hard, but it's a different process than drafting. Anyway, I'm not saying that somebody has to read all the time, but if I learn or can tell that people don't read, actively don't read, avoid reading, hate reading, it turns me off of a book. Also, that's not a good sales pitch. I've been to book fairs where the author was standing at the table and actively saying they don't read, and they go, oh no, it's okay that I don't read because I just didn't want to steal stuff to go in my book. I can't handle, you do you as the writer, but I'm gonna struggle with your book. Number 5 is the illustrious Mary Sue. Yeah. Have you met her? The character can do no wrong. They're super special. Everyone who is supposed to like them likes them. The bad guys basically flinch at meeting them unless the bad guy has a thing for them, because you gotta have that sexual tension at some point, right? Because even the bad guys can't help but want to rape this Mary Sue because she is so special. I can't tell you how many books I've read where the main character is a female, she's a complete bitch, but everybody is just like, oh my gosh, I love you, and they never call her out on her bad personality. They just think that she is amazing, and I'm sorry, a bitchy girl that is so stupid and goes against what everybody else is saying and is super stubborn for no apparent reason is not a strong female character. You can have stubborn female characters, you can have female characters that make bad decisions, but continuously just being a bitch that nobody actually acknowledges and everybody just thinks that she's the greatest thing. And that's the other thing, is often with these types of characters, you have other characters around them saying how great they are. Oh, you're so wonderful. Oh, did you know how amazing you are? I'm not wonderful. Oh, yes, you are. Evan says that you're wonderful. Everybody thinks that you're wonderful. Cannot stand it. It is those characters trying to brainwash me into thinking that this character is a good character because the character cannot show me that they're a good character on their own. If nobody in the story can call out the character on how they're acting, we've got a problem. Bonus ways to piss me off with storytelling is saying, you're not allowed to write that. Watch me. And then the double bonus for storytelling. So some of these are like having to do with writing or just the writing community in general, and other ones have to do with actually reading or storybooks or story development. The second bonus, and this will be the last thing that I mention, is stories misrepresenting themselves. The biggest culprit this year has been freaking women writing romances that are dressed up in sci-fi spray paint. I have seen so many of those this year. If your plot summary tells me a story that doesn't start until halfway through, or doesn't even tell the story at all, it just gives you kind of a general vibe, but then the story is entirely different than the plot summary blurb, whatever, we're gonna have a bad time. Look, if you promise me a certain kind of story and I get 50% of the way through your story and I still have not been introduced to that story, we're gonna have a bad time. For sci-fi stuff, if your story make-up plot line mostly revolves around these two main characters getting together, and at the climax or the denouement of the story, it is a sex scene every single time, and Looking at you, specific book series. The denouement of all 3 books was a sex scene where the characters getting back together. You're not a sci-fi. You're a romance. I don't care what kind of technology you put in there. You're a romance. And your plot lines lied to me. But you're usually going to get like a bad response if you tell readers that your book is one thing and they're not. And they end up being another. I think I did a video on this before. I was talking about how you kind of want to make your blurb describe what is in the first maybe act of your story, so people kind of get an idea of what they're getting into, and then the rest of your book can answer what is portrayed in the first act or the first third, or, you know, the first major climactic point of your story. I think I've done that because I've ranted about this before. I'll link it at the end of this video if I can. And that's pretty much it. Those are my 5+2 bonus points of things that irritate me with storytelling, story writing, and the writing community, and or ways to just kind of piss me off. I'm sure that I will piss somebody off with those opinions. I would love to hear some of yours down in the description below. I hope that maybe we can at least vibe together on some of them, and my deal breakers are not your deal breakers. With all of that said, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and don't die.
Was that Wayland Cross in the trunk? Do you know, or is that something that's still being figured out?
The person in the trunk was not Wayland Cross. Is he in trouble? We don't know who did it, but as the owner of the car, the longer he's missing, the worse it looks for him.
Cross isn't a killer.
For the last couple of years, the average number of murders in Baltimore has been over 300, and it's been going up. Mind you, that's only whatever the badges count as official murder, and believe me, there are people that don't count when they die.
Wayland? If you're down here, tell me. I'm not talking to the badges, I've been looking for you. They found a body in your trunk. Way. Why? Did you do that?
To the left, plain black letters read along the wall,
You walked in the corridor.
once that ends,
You chose the dark is on the right. My vision goes blurry, flickers black and black for longer intervals until I can't see anything at all. I'm not screaming anymore, but my voice echoes back to me.
where the hell am I?
You're dead, Josephine.
Even smart people do stupid shit sometimes, right?